LICH'S LAIR. If I might explain a little bit about LICH'S LAIR, this is where we really break something down and get into the nitty-gritty about whether or not it fulfills these criteria. And we're going to be doing that right now. Purple Neko-chan was saying, making a Satyr race. There's already a Satyr race made. I have made one. And we're going to be going over and seeing if my work passes these tests. Usually me and Jeremy will kind of do some like pre-work and kind of go over each other's content outside of the stream before we do so, but this is Jeremy's first look.
Yeah, maybe usually we'll do like a showcase for stuff we create, but this is going to be fun. We're going to put our pedal to the metal here, put Pete's creation to the test.
Yeah, and usually me and Jeremy, when we do a LICH'S LAIR, are reviewing it together. So there's kind of two voices that are speaking on this. Since it's going to be Jeremy just by himself, I would also encourage you guys in chat to let me have it.
Absolutely.
If you think that there's something that works or doesn't work in that, please let me know, because I would love to hear that feedback as well. You know, I'm trying to grow just as much as everyone else. So let me know what you guys think. Get us in there, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Let's start it out.
Let's dive into LICH'S LAIR.
Puny mortals, dare you to enter into the Lich's Lair?
Alrighty, folks, we're back.
We're here. We're within the Lich's Lair. Yeah, we're going to be doing this Satyr right here.
Absolutely.
Jeremy, normally, Mira, you read it. Do you mind if I just read it myself?
The one thing I'd say, Pete, about you reading it is there is the possibility that you would read it in such a way that would make it sound better than it is. You know what I mean?
I guess.
I kind of like the uninspired. Like not uninspired, the unknowledgeable read.
If you want to just read it through, you're welcome to do so.
Nah, Pete, you can read your Satyr.
No, if you think, I want to have the true experience. I don't want anyone to say
well, we do always ask if our participant would like to read. So would you like to read your Satyr?
Yes, I would. I would very much like to read myself. Also, anything to say about the Satyr in advance before it came in? Jeremy told me today that the next book that's coming out has a Satyr in it.
Yes, Theros has a Satyr race,
which broke my heart. Wait, is it already out? Like, is there a Satyr that's been? Okay, I was gonna even have my heart more broken if I found out that there was already an official Satyr. I would have lost my space point before I began. But
it's gonna be fun though. I'm excited to see this today and see where we're at, and then I'm really excited for when the Mythic Odyssey of Theros does come out to really compare the two and see where they're at.
Yeah, well, I think this is going to be a more heavily Feywild inspired take on the Satyr, and I think that their Satyr will be more inspired by like the Greek mythology from which the Satyr originally hails. So I bet you that will be kind of a difference. I don't think that it will completely overlap, but I mean, you know, the revelry aspects of a Satyr, there's no way that there won't be overlap there.
Yeah, please take us away.
I'm gonna go into this thing. This is the Satyr. I have a little quote here that I did at the beginning. May every dryad, each nymph and each naiad be swaddled in forested shrines, and every satyr with appetites greater be swaddled in dances and wines. A traditional Fey blessing. Of the wondrous sights and sounds that the Feywild has to offer, those most recounted in mortal tales often belong to the satyrs. Be it the melodies of their panpipes lilting through the verdant Fey forests, their silhouettes cast against the bonfire light of midnight Fey revels, or their raucous laughter as unsuspecting travelers fall victim to one of the Fey's many wiles. Satyrs find joy in each moment, taking pleasure in all that life has to offer. Is the kind of opening statement here. Do you want me to let me know if I stop, or do you want to like switch back and forth?
I think what I'd like to do is if I have something to comment, I'll interrupt you, but otherwise you can kind of continue, and I'll interrupt at the end of sections here. Right off the bat, I just want to say it's a really great start. A very nice little poem kind of deal you put together at the front for the traditional Fey blessing. I love when content includes that kind of stuff. Is it really?
Yeah, I love it too.
It gives some legitimacy to how, well, not even legitimacy, the intent of a quote, right, is how a person or a creature in the world might interpret the satyr or the content. In this case, it's a race option of the satyr, and I like that. I like that a lot. You've already set the scene for. I mean, words like swaddled, right, have a very, very comforting, almost what's the term? Hedonistic, right, association with them, and then combined with like appetites, dances, and wines. I think a very good lead in there. And then beyond that, right in the intro paragraph, you gave a lot of an immediate description of things that I am now anticipating will show up throughout the content. Perhaps musical instrumentation to a degree, and maybe some mystery and wiles and trickery kind of stuff. So I'm very interested to see where we go from here.
Well, let's keep going. And let me know again if you'd like me to kind of.
Yeah, and after 232 also loves the poem. Thank you. After, I mean, like Pete was saying, we would love to hear your guys' thoughts in the chat as we kind of go along. Just because my opinion on these kind of things and Pete's opinion on these kind of things is not the be-all end-all. The whole point of this is so that we all can kind of share our thoughts and create better content together. But Pete, go ahead and take it hand and hoof.
Yes, hand and hoof. While satyrs have a heightened build that is similar to a human's, the lower half of their body is more akin to a goat's. Their legs from the waist down are coated in thick, coarse hair, ending in 2 cloven hooves, and atop a satyr's head are 2 horns that curve up and backward. Nearly all satyrs are male and are prone to having thick body and facial hair that grows back quickly, even with rigorous trimming. There's usually a physical description. A personal note here. Mm-hmm. In mythology, all satyrs are always male. I went with a nearly instead of all because that was what felt more right for a playable race, because I don't know what people want to do with this. But
absolutely,
that's a note that I could see people wanting it to be just the purest, but that's my thought on that.
Well, and I think there's a point, right, where you don't want to go purist. For example, the centaur in the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. There's nothing about centaurs raping people in that, and it's a very good thing that there's not.
Yeah.
Right. There's certain parts of the pure mythos and mythology that you do not want to incorporate. And I think this is a very tactful decision. And actually, I was about to point that out myself, that you included almost rather than just saying all. Important thing to note there, even if you and in your games all satyrs will be male, you're creating content to open up for the world, right, for other people. And maybe in someone else's game, they see it a little differently. Pete, take us all the way with Pleasure Seekers.
To also all things on the table, a lot of the language in Pleasure Seekers was taken directly from the Satyr race stat block. So a lot of the beginning here aren't my own words.
Race stat block?
I'm sorry,
monster
monster block. Mm-hmm. So this is almost directly taken from that. Satyrs crave the strongest drink, the most fragrant spices, and the most dizzying dances. Satyrs feel starved when they can't indulge themselves, and they go to great lengths to sate their desires. Satyrs allow no festivity to pass them by and partake in any holiday they've heard of. Satyrs believe that the civilizations of the world have enough festivals and holy days among them to justify nonstop celebration. Many satyrs tread a fine line between joyous revelers and selfish hedonists. Satyrs that repress these urges find that they resurface in the pursuit of their other passions. A satyr with a thirst for knowledge may not be able to put down a book once they've started it, or a satyr with a deep love of nature may not be able to resist seeing the view from the top of each mountain they come across.
I like that a lot. I imagine that second paragraph there was your own kind of addition.
Yeah, because I didn't want you to have to play a drinking, dancing satyr all the time.
Yeah, I think that's very good. Passion being the the operative takeaway here.
Wanderers of the Wilds next. Most satyrs make their home in the Feywild, an ancient plane that runs parallel to the material plane, where elves, fairies, and hags hold sway. There they live lives of decadence, either acting out their own whims or living as an attendant to a god or archfey that prizes revelry and celebration above all else. While in the Feywild, satyrs live eternally, sharing laughter and often fine drink with the fair folk that grace those mystical woodlands. Satyrs that wander from their home to the material plane, be it to find new entertainments, to spend time with mortal friends, or to escape the dangers that often lurk within the Feywild, find that their supernatural vitality fades. A satyr that chooses to live a life outside of the Feywild ages and passes on much like a human would. This is my own lore that I made to justify satyrs as adventurers, because they're kind of eternal beings. But
sure. I just want to think, is there anything I want to comment on right there? I had, there's actually a great comment in chat from Face of Jericho. Nice personality description of the Satyr and lends lots of RP guidance to the Satyr. I completely agree. You know, having that extra paragraph up at the top just to give some, and the whole point of that is, right, to give some inspiration to someone who wants to play them. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty solid. I like this Wanderers of the Wilds is like a reason that they might want to explore. I think if you we're going to be totally thorough, another reason for them to leave might be, you know, in pursuit of their passions, right? Might be something to weave into that a little bit.
Yeah, doubling down on that word would probably be a good idea. Because that was that focus
like for
earlier.
example, you know, satyrs that wander from their homes to the material plane, be it to find new entertainments, it might be rather than, you know, be it to find new entertainments, be it to pursue their passions or, you know, something like that.
Actually like that more. I'm just going to put it in.
Yeah, that would be something I would kind of consider, just because it's doubling down on that really core concept of passions for the satyr.
Yeah, I definitely like that more as a good note.
Cool. Otherwise, I mean, so far so great. So great, so good.
Satyr names. Names in the Feywild hold greater power than in the material plane. Satyrs' true names are gifted to them by the divine forces that bring them into the world, and are secrets that they would most likely never reveal to even the most trusted friends. Instead, most satyrs opt to take a name from the culture they most interact with. Elven names are common choices for satyrs in the material plane, as the Elven language is the most similar to their native Sylvan tongue.
This is very interesting.
Yeah, I didn't do a chart because I didn't know what to put.
No, I think that works because you were referring to elf names, which that you can find
as a chart. Yeah.
One thing I would maybe consider is the divine word up top.
Yeah, that's one that I've played around with a lot.
Yeah, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying that would, like, if I were gonna pick on something, you'd be like, maybe there's something to change here. That might be it.
I had Eldritch for a while, which felt too evil. Nope. Yeah, exactly.
Definitely the wrong vibe.
I also had the word ancient forces, but I didn't.
Supernatural
is a little vague. Yeah. It's definitely one to think about.
Natural, even otherworldly. Like, I mean, there are a lot of different terms.
For a while, I was like referring to specific gods. I had like Dionysus and Bacchus as a reference to like their Greek origins, but like that didn't feel right either.
Yeah. Well, actually, something I want to note, now that we're moving on to the race feature section, one of the things I've noticed that you haven't included here is references to Dionysus and Bacchus, and I know there are many other gods, Shantea or Sune, in the Forgotten Realms, that there's not really any mention of these kind of things there. I'm wondering, is that an intentional choice, wanting this to be kind of setting agnostic? Because right now, there isn't a lot of reason I can see here as to, like, emphasizing if a character wanted to play a religious satyr. And I think having some text in there, somewhere in here, that would kind of support those could be, I mean, that could be another way to give a player wanting to pursue this race a little bit more inspiration.
The only kind of reference to that I put was in the Wanderer of the Wild section. It was a more vague kind of references, but was living as an attendant to a god or archfey that prizes revelry and celebration, which I was thinking of as being kind of like, if you wanted to play a cleric of Dionysus, you could kind of have that backstory. I didn't know how I felt about referencing those specific gods, because I do, personal taste is to go more setting agnostic.
Yeah, and it's I just ask because I notice a lot of new content that's been coming out for in the Unearthed Arcana. They have segments in the realm of blood, in the land of, you know, the forgot a beer Turil. This may represent this in Athos. It might be this. In, you know, it gives a little context of what the class option might represent in different settings. I'm wondering if maybe there's something to include with that specifically relating to deities in this. Not that it necessarily needs it, but it might be a nice touch.
A gray box might be nice too on that, like satyrs as
Sidebar.
Yeah. Satyrs as whatever the phrase I want to use is. Another thing from Frosty Fire, I like the part about hiding their true names, but I feel like they could have had a unique naming convention for their nicknames. I agree with you. I just didn't have a good idea and didn't want to put something that I didn't. I'd rather use something that was more neutral and player centric than putting out something that I thought was a little bit weak. If you know what I mean. But I think you're right. If I had like a cool thought for that, I probably would have gone that direction.
Yeah, you also typically, and V-Bunny's saying this right there, you don't want to push people too much in one direction or the other. I totally agree. I think it's a really great point to bring up, specifically about these names. By leaving it open and by not, I mean, obviously, you've taken a little bit of lore onto your own, coming up with true names gifted to them by divine, blah, 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 right? Like, by doing that, you've created some of your own lore to add into the satyrs. Creating too much of your own lore to inject in something like this can be dangerous, right? It can be something that really drives people away because it pushes them too much in one direction. So I think this is actually a really tasteful amount without, you know, pushing too far. That's something that, you know, a player could just completely ignore if they wanted. You know, it's not a requirement for them to care about it.
Yeah, I likely actually wouldn't have done the true name thing if I had come up with a better naming convention. But that was kind of my answer to a name. Yes.
I like after I went to a satyr name generator and all I could get was bruh. Nice. Yeah.
I kind of believe it. Like, it kind of sounds like a satyr name. Bruh.
Well, either way, I think that's about where I'd leave that off for the time being. I don't think I have anything else to really mention about that now, but I'm liking it so far. I don't have any major issues. Again, the only thing I would maybe consider incorporating in the future is some of the religious aspects, because right now this really feels like something that's almost devoid of any religiosity, where that is could be a big deal.
Yeah, it's
or
part
at least
of the,
be an option.
It's part of the mythology. I mean, there's definitely going to be people that want to take it in that direction because of the rich kind of mythology around that. But
maybe that could be a last sentence in this pleasure seekers paragraph, right? Could be, or another sentence in that pleasure seekers paragraph talking about some satyrs devote themselves to deities, you know, lusting after beauty, knowledge, and other whatevers, something like that. Let's talk about these race options. Let's get into the actual.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the mechanics.
This is how to play a satyr.
Race features. Your satyr character has certain traits derived from their affinity to their home within the Feywild. Ability score increase. Your charisma score increases by 2. Dex score increases by 1. The monster stat block had them more dexterous than charismatic, but the lore for me felt more charisma than dex. I went that way. Age. Satyrs in the Feywild are eternally young, but in the material plane, they age and mature as humans do, rarely living beyond 100 years. Alignment. Most satyrs greatly prize their personal freedom in their pursuit of life's pleasures. As such, they tend towards the chaotic alignment, often not concerning themselves with the grandiose struggle between good and evil. Size. Satyrs are about the same size and build as humans. Your size is medium. Speed. Your base walking speed is 30 feet. Anything there before we go into the actual features?
A couple of things. One, I think their home within the Feywild, there's an implication there that the character is from the Feywild. I think that is maybe just a little too much. I would say maybe their ancient home within the Feywild, or their
ancestral.
Ancestral. Oh, ancestral doesn't even quite feel right. Their affinity to Feywild works for me a little bit better, just because there's an implication here.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
Yeah, that would be my thought there. And then I also had a comment on age. I see where you're going here. Eternally young makes sense for a mythical, whimsical fey creature. One of the things that I could see becoming a playability issue with this is just a frustration between a dungeon master and a player of like, oh well, I'm eternally young. I've been alive for 10,000 years. Just I know everything. Right?
Yeah.
It's like there's some obnoxiousness in there. One of the things that I might put in here to kind of tie this around a little bit, and I'm not sure if this is your intent, but once they have left the Feywild, they begin an aging process. They rarely live beyond 100 years. The implication of returning to the Feywild would not stop them from continuing to age. Perhaps. I don't know if that's necessarily.
I actually thought about exactly that a lot and decided I didn't want to go to that degree of specificity because I didn't want to be putting in mechanics for how, because that's almost like putting in mechanics for world building. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I feel what you're saying.
This is kind of a guideline. I thought of it as
yeah, it's already
the eternal being definitely could have some issues, but I don't see it as being that much different. It's incredibly tough
because the reason I feel like it's hard, right, is a lot of campaign settings have a cataclysm or some big thing that has happened. And even the Forgotten Realms, if you're playing even an elf, right? Elves can live up to 900 years or something, right? You're a 300-year-old elf. There have been huge cataclysms in your character's lifetime that you have to understand or evaluate or justify how your character what your character knows about those kind of things. That can be really funky. Eternally young is oh, that's just weird. I don't know. It just concerns me a smidge.
Okay.
It's not that like I said, there's already issues with the elf being 900, but
yeah, it's not something that's unprecedented. But I mean,
I would say if there's an issue, that's it so far.
Okay. All right, let's keep going. We can come back to it if we want.
Yeah, I'd like to see this next
one. Enchanting Melody. You may cast either the Cause Fear, Charm Person, or Sleep spell once per day at first level using a pan flute as a spellcasting focus. Charisma is your spellcasting ability for these spells.
Okay.
Fey Nature. You have two creature types, humanoid and Fey. You can be affected by a game effect if it works on either of your creature types.
Okay.
And here's where we might get the first bit of controversy, major controversy. Pure magic resistance. You have advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects.
Mm-hmm.
Ram. Your curved horns are a natural weapons, which you can use to make unarmed strikes. If you hit with it, you deal bludgeoning damage equal to 1d4 plus your strength modifier instead of the bludgeoning damage normal for an unarmed strike. And Reveler. You gain proficiency in the pan flute and one of the following skills: acrobatics, performance, or persuasion. Should be one of the following skills of your choice. Did I forget that? In languages, you can speak, read, and write Common and Sylvan. The Sylvan language is airy and lilting and can often seem like song to those unaccustomed to hearing it.
It's an interesting sentence you added to the end right there.
It's actually an old convention where in the original Player's Handbook, they would talk a little bit about the language and kind of what it sounded like to other people and kind of people that weren't used to that language. A great example is where is it? Gnome. The Gnomish language, which uses the Dwarvish script, is renowned for its technical treatises and its catalogs of knowledge about the natural world. I kind of like that little bit of extra flavor, although it's not on some of the newer races, maybe. But I always liked it.
I do as well.
And that is all.
Interesting though. Okay, so let's look at this from a. Let's look at it from our rubric. Space. Is there room in this for 5e? For now, there absolutely is.
Oh no!
There's currently no Satyr race in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons that's officially released.
Just bad luck or bad paying attention. I'll take it while I can get it.
Yeah, you'll absolutely get your space point. Let's also talk flavor point. not only does the Satyr get the flavor point, I mean, it is great. I mean, you've got all the flavor in here. Your mechanics reflect the flavor, which is really where the flavor point really comes in. You have a really cool concept, but if the mechanics don't support it, you're not going to get the point. These mechanics also.
For a race.
So no qualms or quibbles there. From a design perspective, I wanted to talk a little bit about this enchanting melody. You may cast either the charm, cause fear, charm person, or sleep spell once per day at first level using a pan flute as a spellcasting focus. Once per day is, I think, the convention here. You might want to change. I think once using a pan flute spellcasting focus, once you've cast a spell in this manner, you cannot use it again until the next dawn, I think is the correct convention for that.
Actually, in the original spellcasting race, the Tiefling,
Really?
they use once per day.
Interesting.
That is to read that text,
Yeah.
unless it's been errated, because that's what I was pulling from. You know, the Thaumaturgy, Infernal Legacy, you know, the Thaumaturgy cantrip, once you reach 3rd level, you can cast the Hellish Rebuke spell once per day as a 2nd level spell. Once
Yeah,
you
it's
reach
been
5th
errated.
level, you can also cast, oh, interesting.
Yeah, they have eroded that.
I did not know that that was eroded.
Yeah, once the 2nd level spell, you must finish a long rest in order to cast the spell again using this trait.
My heart she break. I was looking at the
player's handbook. Yeah. And I don't think it matters, but just a matter of minor convention.
Because I wrote it the way that you're saying. I wrote it that way originally, and then looked it up and changed it to once per day. Go
figure. I also have, so I like this, pretty good. I like that you've managed to incorporate these 3 spells that are very iconic, I think, to Satyrs without putting too much power on it. The one potential qualm I have is cause fear. And the only reason I have it is by convention, typically, when you're creating a new race option or subclass feature, the spells that they get are only spells that are in the player's handbook, not ones from Xanathar's Guide to Everything or what's the other place? What those in the spells?
Anyway, I know what you're saying.
I don't care about that though. I think this is perfectly fine.
Yeah, I do a little bit, honestly. There's just no first level spell that fears.
Oh yeah, no, I think this is good. Like, spot on. Just if you're gonna nitpick, which I'm gonna nitpick a little bit.
Oh, pick my nits, please.
That would be what I would pick. Beyond that, I would also, as a matter of flavor aspect, just in kind of in that inclusivity of, you know, when you said almost all satyrs are male, you've assumed the pan flute. And I know that is iconic to satyrs. However, perhaps, like, you know what I'm saying? Maybe there's some inclusivity to musical instruments. Who's to say I don't want to be the drummer, you know, the drummer satyr?
Okay, I can...
Potentially. It's a question, it's an option, and I don't think it's a requirement, because it's a very small little bit here.
It's a fair nod to, you know, you gotta make choices sometimes, but I can see it, like, it's so ingrained in what a satyr is to me that I didn't even consider it being anything but the pan flute. This is the first time I've actually thought about the idea of spreading it to something else, so...
Yeah, and I see, you know, everybody was saying Satyr Bard tries to use any type of item. Right, this does somewhat limit you a little bit. I could even, actually, a great example everybody was going out with the Bard. Let's say, right, you get your instrument of the Bards, your draw flute, and it's like, well, this is now the thing I have on me all the time. Crap, right?
I don't know if that's a problem, because you just play the pan flute.
I know, just a matter of, you know, pointing something out.
In terms of it, I just say in terms of it, like, not functioning, I think it still would work. It's just...
Yeah. Anyway, you get the flavor point. I'll give it to you hands down. Space point, I'll give it to you hands down. I'm not sure you're going to get the bonus point on flavor.
I don't think I necessarily deserve the bonus point on flavor.
It's solid. I really like... I'm tempted to give you the design point on Enchanting Melody. I'm not sure if that convention exists somewhere else, but I like that. You know, here's 3 level 1 spells. Well. You can cast them once. It's very good, clean in use. But I'll give you the 1 point at least for design. Playability, I don't think the age thing is really a playability issue, but I would consider changing it personally.
Yeah.
I would look into what, because I know satyrs have existed in other editions.
What are they
and I would
doing
look
about that on
into-
other races?
What do you mean?
Is there any like sample where they've made caveats about, for example, even looking at elves who can live like 800 years, have they ever been like, if you're playing a really old thing, keep these things in mind?
No. They never mentioned anything like that.
Mm.
And I don't think it's as a homebrewer's job. You know, it's not a homebrewer's job to start doing that, right? That's Wizards of the Coast's job, is to actually do that.
But
put
it
some
does-
notes
it
for a
does bother
dungeon
me,
master
though.
to consider. It does. It's something that has come up in games I've run. Player playing a very, very, very old elf, and it's like, well, why am I at level 1? What have I done for the last 600 years, right? Have I learned any skills? Like, do I have proficiencies in things like, I don't know, a cobbler's kit? Have I just sat doing poetry for 300 years and I have no, appreciable mechanical uses as a fighter? I don't know, right? It's a lot of big questions that really there's no good guidance on currently. No official guidance on, I'd say. Bacchus and Chill. Yeah, Matty Mark.
Frosty Fire was saying you could just not talk about the you could not talk about the Feywild thing and just say in the material realm they age, blah blah blah. That might be a way to go. I like the Feywild thing. Is what it comes down to. Is I like mentioning that like these are kind of immortal creatures and ones that like you encounter in your game are probably going to be like that. And I don't want to like distinguish the player one as being different from other satyrs in the world that much. But it's a direction you could do that, and it would probably quell that issue.
Another thing that you could, it's weird. Is there actually like lore that says that they live forever, or do they just enjoy youth?
I don't think like. I don't know if it's specified. It always was.
Yeah.
I feel like it's always been implied in the mythology of Fey creatures that they just live forever in the Fey. Like, I don't because of things like Titania and like all of that Archfey and stuff, which are I guess demigods, but they're kind of eternal. It seems weird to me that like just not all the that's just not something that they are, But I guess it doesn't specify. You could just I could have not included that and just said that they lived for this amount of time, and it wouldn't have necessarily been wrong.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's also assuming certain things about the Feywild that might not be true in every setting. I don't know a lot about how the Feywild is treated in other settings. But
sorry,
Pete. Anyway, moving along. Yeah, I don't see many major playability issues. It's just something to consider. And balance, the most probably least important, but most obvious and to most people most important topic. Charisma and Dex, very, very good ability scores just right off the bat.
Yep.
Incredibly strong. In terms of other features, you get one spell that uses your charisma, which of course is your primary stat. And the spells are Sleep, which is Charm Person, which is just nice to have, always on as an option, and Cause Fear, which is a legitimately decent spell. So that's something to. There is some power there, not a ton, but there's some.
Yeah, no, there's power.
Feign Nature. This actually is more of a deficit than a benefit ever. I know After was asking, will the Florins get to become plants in D&D time? Becoming, having a secondary creature type is a strict deficit. It's just strictly bad. There's very little that helps certain creature types. There's a lot that hurts them.
But, Jeremy, I don't know about you. I wouldn't be just a quick...
I was going to say it's neutral. I'm not going to care about it.
I'd be kind of down to change the plants. I'd be trying to get down to give Florins the plant type.
Absolutely. I mean, unrelated comment for D&D time, but
yeah. Sorry to distract. What's
Fey
up?
Nature holds no power to me. I mean,
Yep.
it's just a ribbon. Ram holds no appreciable power to me. It's just a fun ribbon.
Reveler gives a good skill.
And I think you did the right thing saying a natural weapon which is used to make unarmed strikes. That is the most up-to-date convention, and that's the way to roll it. That way, a paladin can use their horns, and a monk can use their horns, and the paladin can smite, and the monk can do their martial arts stuff. It's just more fun. Reveler, there's a bit of power here because you're letting them pick between a suite of different feature or skills.
Yeah, the pan flute's nothing, but the
skills are something.
The skills, they get one skill. So.
Yeah.
And they're good skills. Maybe not performance, but acrobatics and persuasion are both good skills.
Yeah, so what it comes down to is this magic resistance, and that is just straight resistance to spell and a magical effect.
A very powerful effect.
Yeah. The problem is there is a race that is very comparable to this already, the Yuan Ti, which they also have magic resistance. They also have +2 to charisma, but their secondary plus is to intelligence, which is much, much worse than a dexterity plus for a sorcerer or other charisma caster. You get skills they don't have. They get poison immunity, which is something, and they get dark vision, but you get some actually usable spells. I can see they get suggestion, so that's pretty comparable.
And they get all of them. You just get one of those a day. I don't know. I thought that this was
well, they had to
low
speak
enough.
with snakes, like.
I thought that this was far enough below the Yuan Ti.
Yeah, I think this is just because of that dexterity. I think this is very close to Yuan Ti in its power, frankly. I would be a little worried on the balance side. Just in terms of pushing the envelope of what is power in 5th edition D&D, because this is quite a bit of power here.
Really think the 2 charisma, dexterity 1 is that.
I mean, this is now the optimal sorcerer. This is now the optimal bard. Yeah, like it just is. It's even the optimal paladin. You just be
I don't know about
rapier paladin.
Yeah, but rapier paladin isn't really the optimal paladin.
It's just as good as every other paladin, my friend. Just doesn't use a great weapon. It uses sword and board. There's nothing that makes a paladin use strength. Yeah,
I guess if you're going sword and board, sure.
Really powerful. And that's my worry. I'm not sure if I could give it the balance point, because when you're designing, man, you don't want to be pushing the envelope, and this is pushing the envelope. I mean, it's close. I'll tell you, it's damn close. If you had given this the gnome cunning kind of style, just gave it the certain magic resistances instead of all out. I know you didn't, because the Satyr
it's cooler. It's cooler for it to have magic resistance.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. I'm not positive. It's tough.
I'm really surprised that you're weighing 1 dex that highly.
It's very good. I mean, I'm not.
Basically...
Again, what I'm saying is I was saying the enchanting melody, because it's got more versatility, is about equal to the Yuan Ti spell casting, which is just a suggestion spell.
Sure,
They're about equal. You have a proficiency in a +1 dex versus their poison immunity. That's really where and a natural weapon.
And dark vision.
I don't think dark vision is actually that mechanically powerful though.
Certainly
because
is at early levels.
The dark vision is only as useful as the the party that, if everyone has it. Otherwise, it's just kind of there. I'm tempted. I don't know. I'm not sure if I'd be able to give it the point. I'm not positive. But it's damn close.
I think it's okay, but
the question, right, is would giving this a slightly reduced magic resistance kill the flavor to you? Giving it the gnome cunning treatment.
Kill the flavor? No, but it's cooler with magic resistance. It wouldn't destroy it. If it had just for example, if it had advantage on saving throws against spells and not the other magical effects thing, that would be a compromise that you could make on this.
I would like that though, because that's a weird convention changing.
Well, yeah, for sure. And I'm trying to mirror the Satyr as it appears. Anyway, I get you. I don't know if I'm 100% with you on the power.
Well, and
of the Dex
that's where
+1.
we can all disagree here, right? Where as creators, we have the right and the almost we need to disagree in some regards. I think because everything else is so clean, I'm gonna give it to you. I'll give you 0.5, but I do have slight concerns about the overall power level of this on a fine tooth scale, on the fine balance scale. I see this very much as the mechanically superior option now for the bard or the sorcerer.
They were certainly meant to be.
Got everything.
They were certainly meant to be great bards.
But either way, overall, very well put together, Pete. I'm sorry to break your heart.
I don't think you broke my heart. I just don't know if I'm not know if I'm fully seeing it, but I definitely knew that magic resistance would be the talking point on this when I put it on.
But either way, overall, pretty good. Lots, totally spaced for this, oozing with flavor, well designed, and overall, besides a little age part, no real playability issues, at least that I can see. So I like it. This is an example of something that we would love, if you have anything even close to this, we would love to see you guys share the stuff for Lich's Lair. Thank you to everyone in the chat who put your ideas in as well. It's really nice to get your thoughts on this as we're going through it, because just as you saw here, Pete and I could disagree. It's not a rare occurrence. It's not a bad thing. But it's good to get more people's opinions and feelings. I'm very excited to see how this pairs up against the Satyr and
Satyr they make.
Mystic Odyssey of Theros. When that comes out,
we'll see if they go full magic resistance.
I think they will. I think you're going to see something pretty similar to this. My suspicion is Reveler will not exist. They will not have the music incorporated into them at all. I think they'll totally miss that. I think we're going to see something just very similar, but with magic resistance.
You think it'll just be this, but without Reveler?
I think Reveler and Enchanting Melody will both.
Well, Enchanting Melody will not be.
I think it'll just be a much more bare bones race option.
But they'll put stuff on it that's like because they got to put something on it. Because that's another thing I was thinking is like.
I don't think they will. I think they're going to make a really bare bones option.
I had made
that's the direction they've been going.
I had made the thing with magic resistance, and I was like, I just don't think this is exciting to play. It's just good, and which is why I put like the Ram and the Reveler and the stuff. But anyway, that's that.
And yeah, Plunder was saying Dex is a super stat. Maybe go Wisdom. Yeah, Dex is the right one though for the Satyr. That's the problem. It is absolutely a super stat.
But it's that's definitely the one in flavor. How do you not have immunity to charm instead? Because Satyrs don't actually have immunity to charm.
And another interesting thing in the chat, right? Fey. So does that include Fey ancestry from the elf? No, it doesn't. The Fey nature feature actually doesn't do anything mechanically for you. I would almost want, and that maybe is the compromise you're looking for, Pete, is, you give it Fey ancestry and you get rid of the magic resistance. Like, you give it a certain limited deal, and with it's the shtick that you're not a Feywilds, living in the Feywilds, eternally youthful Satyr anymore.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's a compromise.
Could be.
But that's exactly why it's good to get these ideas out there. Thank you very much, Frosty, and everybody else in the chat for your thoughts. Should we move along, Pete? Are we good here?
Frosty Fire, maybe I should shut up so Pete doesn't kill me in 2 minutes. No, I appreciate it. Like I said, I gotta defend my heart because I built it the way that I think it's the best. But if the world looks at this and says, it should be Fey ancestry and not magic resistance. Sometimes you have to listen to the voice of the people.
Sometimes you can't be afraid to kill your darlings.
But anyway, Jeremy, how did I do?
Pete, you have ventured into the Lich's Lair and survived by the nick of your teeth.
I survived with an asterisk. So survived
You
with controversy.
Survived? Your lore has been accepted by the Lich, and you've survived with he's giving you the quivering palm maneuver, so he might decide in the next day or two to just kill you, but for now, you walk free.
He's definitely going to decide in like a month when the other Satyr comes out.
Oh yeah, Raventail, Blacktail, and Lich's Lair is a democracy. Who knew? Well, it is. It's the great Liches are reviewing your content to see if it is worthy of their collections. If you fail, you die, and they claim your soul for their phylactery. If you succeed, they still steal your content, and then you get to leave.
And that's going to wrap us up for Lich's Lair. But wait, Jeremy, because it's time to dive into the Lich's Lair, as we have another one back to back. As we are going to now be bringing up, I'm going to go down and check Jeremy, introduce him while I go down and make sure he's ready to go.